I remember the exact moment everything fell apart, and I still chose to smile, because that was the moment I stopped being the woman they thought they could control. The day my father chose status over me. The day my fiancé chose money over love. The day my best friend chose betrayal over loyalty. That was the day I disappeared. And 3 years later, when I walked back into that birthday party, they all froze, because the woman they destroyed no longer existed. Stay with me until the end, because this story isn't about revenge the way you think, it's about something far more powerful. And before we begin, comment where you're watching from and subscribe, you don't want to miss stories like this. At 29, I believed I had built a life that was finally mine. My name is Ava Bennett, and I was a photographer, not the kind with luxury studios or celebrity clients, but the kind who chased real moments. Quiet smiles, fleeting glances, the kind of truth people don't pose for. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and I loved it. I lived in a small apartment in Boston, shared with my best friend, Lily Dawson. She was everything I thought I needed: fun, supportive, always there. Or at least, that's what I believed. And then there was Lucas Reed, my fiancé. Steady, charming, the kind of man who made promises that felt safe. I thought we were building a future together, something solid, something real. But the center of everything was my father, Victor Bennett. Powerful. Respected. The kind of man who believed success wasn't earned, it was displayed. I spent years trying to make him proud. I just didn't realize. I was never part of the version of success he wanted. My father, Victor Bennett, didn't believe in love the way I did. To him, everything had a value, and if it didn't increase status, it wasn't worth keeping. He built his reputation from nothing, and he never let anyone forget it. Every dinner, every conversation, every introduction, was a performance. And I was always the weakest part of his image. "You're talented," he would say, glancing at my camera like it was a hobby I'd outgrow. But talent doesn't open the right doors. Connections do. At first, I thought he just didn't understand me. But then he started inviting Lucas Reed to private dinners. Without me. At first, it sounded harmless, just business talk, he said. But something about it felt off. The way Lucas started dressing sharper. Speaking differently. Watching my father like he was studying him. I told myself I was overthinking. I had no idea. I was already being quietly replaced. It started with something small, so small I almost ignored it. One night, Lily left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. It lit up with a message, just a preview, just a name. Victor Bennett. At first, I smiled, thinking maybe my dad was planning something for me. But then another message appeared. "We need to be careful. She can't find out yet." My chest tightened. I told myself it had to be about something else. A surprise. A misunderstanding. Anything but what it sounded like. When Lily came back, I watched her differently. The way she grabbed her phone too quickly. The way her smile felt rehearsed. And then, later that week, Lucas canceled our dinner. Said he had a last-minute meeting. That same night, Lily said she was going out. Neither of them looked me in the eye. And for the first time, I felt something I couldn't explain yet. Not anger. Not jealousy. Just a quiet, growing certainty that I was being lied to. The humiliation didn't come all at once. It unfolded slowly, like something carefully planned. My father invited me to one of his formal dinners, rare enough to make me hopeful. I spent hours getting ready, choosing a dress that felt like me, not like the version he always tried to mold. When I arrived, the room was already full. Business partners, polished smiles, quiet judgment. And then I saw them. Lily, standing beside Lucas. Not next to him by chance, but positioned, introduced, presented. My father's hand rested lightly on her shoulder as he spoke to a group. "This is Lily Dawson," he said. "She comes from an exceptional family." No mention of me. Lucas didn't move. Didn't correct him. He just stood there, like he belonged to that version of the story. When my father finally noticed me, his expression barely shifted. "Ava," he said, like I had arrived late to something that no longer included me. And in that moment, surrounded by people who suddenly saw me as irrelevant, I realized this wasn't an accident. It was a rehearsal. And I had just witnessed my own replacement. The truth didn't come from confrontation. It came from silence, and a door left slightly open. A week after that dinner, I went to my father's house unannounced. I told myself I needed clarity, but deep down, I think I already knew. Voices echoed from his office. I shouldn't have stopped. I shouldn't have listened. But I did. "This is the smartest move," my father was saying. "Lily's family brings credibility. Access. You don't get that with Ava." Lucas didn't argue. He agreed. "She wouldn't understand," he said quietly. "It's better this way." My chest felt like it was collapsing inward. Then my father again, colder than I had ever heard him. "She was never the right fit. You're thinking long-term now. That's what matters." There it was. Not doubt. Not confusion. A decision. I stepped back before they could see me, my hands shaking, but my face, completely still. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't part of their future. I was the obstacle they had already decided to remove. I didn't confront them. Not my father. Not Lucas. Not Lily. I went home, closed my door, and sat on the floor with my back against it, as if something might try to come in if I didn't hold it shut. My phone lit up twice that night. First, "Lucas, we need to talk." Then "Lily, are you home?" I stared at both messages until the screen went dark. I could have replied. Demanded answers. Forced the truth into the open. But something deeper stopped me. Because I already had the truth. And once you truly see people for who they are, there's nothing left to argue about. So I said nothing. The next day, Lucas came over. His voice was careful, rehearsed. He spoke about growth, about different paths, about things that sounded thoughtful, but felt empty. Lily cried. Soft, controlled tears. And I just listened. No anger. No questions. Just silence. They walked away thinking I was broken. They had no idea. I was already letting them go. That night, I didn't cry the way they probably expected me to. There were no dramatic calls, no desperate messages, no attempt to fix what they had already destroyed. Instead, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started making decisions. Real ones. I applied for a photography residency abroad, something I had saved months ago but never had the courage to pursue. I booked a one-way ticket. I started transferring what little money I had into a new account under only my control. Then I packed. Not everything. Just what mattered. My camera. My lenses. A few clothes. And the quiet determination that I was done being an option in someone else's plan. By morning, I left a short note on the kitchen counter for Lily. I hope it was worth it. No anger. No explanation. Just truth. I turned off my phone before anyone could reach me. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. And they wouldn't understand what that meant. Until it was too late. To them, it looked like I disappeared. No fight. No scene. No resistance. Just silence. And in their world, silence meant surrender. My father hosted a small private gathering a few weeks later. I wasn't there, of course, but I heard about it later through someone who still thought I mattered enough to mention. Lucas was there. So was Lily. Standing beside him like it had always been that way. They smiled in photos. Played the part perfectly. My father looked satisfied, like a man who had corrected a mistake before it became a problem. She adjusted well, I heard him say. She was always too emotional for stability. That sentence should have broken something in me. It didn't. Because far away from their perfect table, I was learning something they never considered. How to exist without needing to be chosen. In a small studio abroad, I photographed strangers who didn't know my story and didn't need to. And every click of my camera felt like proof that I was still here, just not where they expected me to be. They thought they had one. But they were only looking at the version of the story where I still cared. Months passed, and I stopped measuring time by what they were doing, and started measuring it by what I was becoming. In my new city, I learned to watch people again, but differently. Not for who they claimed to be, but for what they repeated when they thought no one important was listening. I photographed faces in cafes, markets, train stations. Strangers who carried truth without trying to hide it. And slowly, I began to understand patterns. Control always reveals itself. In tone. In silence. In what someone interrupts, and what they allow to exist. Meanwhile, I didn't ask about Lucas. Or Lily. Or my father. But information has a way of finding you when you stop chasing it. A message came from an old acquaintance, they're getting married. I stared at it longer than I expected. Not because it hurt. But because it confirmed something I already knew. This wasn't love. It was construction. A carefully built image meant to replace me completely. And now I finally understood. I wasn't part of their story anymore. I was the absence they were trying to hide. I didn't react to the news. No message. No breakdown. No return. Instead, I opened my laptop and started building something they didn't even know I was capable of. My photography wasn't just art anymore, it became documentation. Stories. Proof of how people construct versions of reality that serve them. And then I found the thread. A small business partnership my father had signed years ago, something Lucas had quietly helped expand before I left. Hidden in financial records I only accessed because I had learned how to read what people assume others will never look for. Nothing illegal. Nothing obvious. Just patterns. Inflated valuations. Favor exchanges. Names appearing where they shouldn't. I saved everything. Not out of anger. But precision. For the first time, I wasn't trying to be understood. I was collecting the truth the way I used to collect light through my lens, patiently, without emotion, frame by frame. And I knew something they didn't. They were still living in a story they thought I had left behind. But I was already writing the part they would never see coming. The more I learned, the more careful I became. Not because I was afraid, but because I understood something important. People like my father don't fear the truth until it becomes undeniable in front of others. So I stayed quiet. I organized everything I had found into separate files, dates, transactions, patterns of influence. Not accusations. Just structure. Something clean enough to survive scrutiny. But silence has a cost. One evening, I received an unexpected email. No name in the subject line. Just an attachment. Inside was a photo. Lucas and Lily. Together. Smiling at a private event my father had attended. And underneath it, a single sentence. You were never the plan. My fingers stopped moving. For a moment, I felt it, the old version of me trying to rise. The one that would question, ache, break. But I didn't let her. Because now I understood something they didn't. This wasn't a message meant to hurt me. It was meant to test if I was still reachable. I closed the laptop. And for the first time, I didn't respond at all. The message changed everything, but not in the way they expected. For a moment, I considered deleting everything I had built. Walking away from the files. From the patterns. From the quiet proof I had collected for months. Because I realized something uncomfortable, staying connected to their world, even through truth, still kept me tied to it. So I made a sacrifice. I erased access to old accounts linked to my past life. I cut contact with the few remaining bridges that could pull me back into Boston. Even the acquaintance who sent the photo, I didn't reply. Then I did something harder. I stopped watching them. No updates. No digging. No checking. Just forward. It felt like losing a sense at first, like stepping into silence so deep it almost swallowed me. But in that silence, something new formed. I was no longer reacting to their choices. I was no longer shaped by their story. And that meant the next move had to belong only to me. Because now, there was no going back. 3 years is enough time for lies to settle, or for truth to mature. By the time I decided to return, I wasn't the same person who left in silence. I didn't come back for closure. I came back because I finally understood how their world worked, and where it would break. The invitation arrived without emotion, my father's birthday. A public event. Carefully curated. Powerful guests. The kind of room where image matters more than history. I accepted. Not because I wanted to see them, but because I wanted them to see me. In the weeks before, I prepared nothing dramatic. No speeches. No confrontations. Just timing. Appearance. Presence. Everything placed exactly where it needed to be. I didn't arrive early. I didn't arrive late. I arrived when the room was full. And when I stepped inside, conversations didn't just pause. They fractured. Because some people don't recognize what they lost until it walks back into the room looking nothing like the version they remember. The moment I stepped inside, the room didn't go silent at first, it hesitated, like reality needed time to catch up. Then I saw them. My father at the center, smiling for cameras. Lucas standing near him, polished, confident. Lily beside him, perfectly styled, perfectly placed, like she had always belonged there. And then their eyes found me. First Lucas. His expression didn't change immediately, it froze, then cracked. Like his mind refused to accept what he was seeing. Lily's hand tightened around her glass. She blinked once. Twice. Then looked away, as if I might disappear if she didn't confirm I was real. My father was the last. And when he saw me, his smile didn't just fade, it collapsed. Because I wasn't the girl who left quietly. I was composed. Unshaken. Successful in a way that didn't need validation in his world. People around us started noticing. The shift. The tension. The recognition they couldn't name. Lucas took a step forward, then stopped. No words came. Because there was nothing left to negotiate. They had replaced me once, but now they understood something far worse. They hadn't replaced me with something better. They had just replaced me, temporarily. The room stayed frozen, but I didn't. I looked at my father first. For years, he had built his world on control, reputation, and the belief that people could be rearranged like pieces on a board. Now he was seeing the one piece he tried to erase standing in front of him and not needing anything from him anymore. "You look different," he finally said, voice lower than I remembered. "I am," I replied simply. Lucas tried to speak next, but nothing came out at first. His confidence, the thing that once made him feel untouchable, collapsed under the weight of recognition. "I didn't think you'd," he started. "Come back?" I finished for him. "You didn't think I mattered enough to return." Lily avoided my eyes completely. The friendship she betrayed me for didn't look like victory anymore. It looked like maintenance. Something held together, not something alive. My father tried to recover control, shifting tone. "This is a family matter. We can." "No," I interrupted, calm. "It stopped being a family matter the moment you decided I was replaceable." Silence hit again, but this time it wasn't shock. It was understanding. There were no accusations from me. No list of everything I had learned. No dramatic reveal of documents or proof. I didn't need it anymore. because the truth was already visible in the room. Lucas and Lily's marriage had already begun to rot under its own foundation. What was built on image couldn't survive reality. I knew later they divorced quietly after years of instability, both realizing too late that ambition without honesty collapses inward. My father's influence didn't disappear overnight, but the cracks followed him. People remembered what they saw that night. Not a powerful man in control, but a man who had lost his ability to recognize value until it walked away. And me? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't destroy anything. I simply existed fully, visibly, without apology. I came here, I said finally, not to be understood, but to end what you started. I turned slightly, already letting go of the weight of the room. You all made choices, I added. I just stopped letting them define me. No one stopped me when I walked out. Because there was nothing left to prove. Outside, the night air felt different, lighter, like something invisible had finally been cut loose. I didn't return to my old life. I didn't rebuild it. I built a new one that had no room for negotiation about my worth. In the years that followed, I became known for my work, not my history. My photography exhibitions focused on human truth, the masks people wear, the moments they forget they're seen. And in that process, I met someone who didn't try to reposition me in his world. He was a writer, calm, grounded, someone who didn't confuse control with love. With him, there were no tests, no power games, no silent negotiations. Just clarity. Respect. Presence. We didn't rush anything. We didn't need to. Eventually, we built a life that didn't require me to shrink or disappear to fit inside it. And when we married, it wasn't a correction of my past. It was a continuation of my freedom. As for my father, I didn't hate him. I didn't chase reconciliation either. There were attempts from him later, carefully worded messages, small gestures of regret, but some distances are not emotional. They are structural. I simply stopped responding. Because I finally understood something that had nothing to do with revenge. The most complete ending isn't when people suffer for what they did. It's when they stop matching to the person they tried to erase. And that was my real ending. Not destruction. Not revenge. Just a life so full, they no longer had a place in it. And if there is one truth I learned through all of this, it is simple. People who choose status over love don't lose you in one moment. They lose you the day they assume you will never leave. So let me ask you something. If you were in my place, would you have fought to be understood, or chosen to become unreachable instead? If this story stayed with you, take a second to like the video so more people can find it, subscribe for more emotional stories like this, and leave a comment sharing what you would have done in her place. I read your comments, and I want to know how you see this kind of situation. Would you have stayed and fought for the truth, or walked away and rebuilt your life like she did?